asset or a liability? That is our question for the panel as we turn our attention now to Texas Governor Rick Perry, who may be thinking about a run for president. Here's more. Let's take a listen to the governor of Texas.
And I'm here today because I did the right thing. I'm going to enter this courthouse with my head held high, knowing the actions that I took were not only lawful and legal, but right. This indictment is nothing short of an attack on the constitutional powers of the office of governor. There are important, fundamental issues at stake. And we'll prevail because we're standing for the rule of law.
Again, that's Texas Governor Rick Perry. Now let's share a little background on this case. Mr. Perry has remained unapologetic in the face of this indictment. This all began when the Texas governor tried to force the resignation of a Democratic district attorney who was convicted of drunk driving. Mr. Perry says it's a witch hunt, and some political strategists say this may be good if he tries a second bid at the presidency. Okay, Dee Dee, of course. I think we know where Dee Dee stands on this one, but we'll let ladies go first. You're nodding your head. Tell us what your thoughts on this indictment.
Well, first, may I say that I was not a Perry fan in the last election, so, I'm not pro-Perry. However, I am now, because this is ridiculous. I mean, even, folks in the New York Times and liberals are saying, well, that may have gone a little too far. And let me tell you, it is helping Perry. He's raising a ton of cash. So much cash he's going to be able to use for the presidential bid. And he's showing leadership. And not only that, this DA is a drunk. Was in jail for a long time. If you've seen the video, you'd say, yep, she needs to be off the bench. So what's the problem?
Let's test the temperature with Dr. Bill Rosenberg from Drexel University. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't quite agree with Dee Dee on this.
Well, that's okay. That's why we asked you here on the show.
So I think the issue really is that all of these government corruption issues that we're actually seeing surface right now, the four major ones in the news are all Republicans, which actually creates a problem for the Republicans because they're all Republican presidential candidates. I'm not saying that the Republican Party is corrupt. I'm saying as many of their top field of candidates are facing this type of allegation. You have Christie, you have the governor of Virginia, you have the governor of Wisconsin, and then you have this situation. The issue is one, it's really an interesting one because he's saying he has the constitutional right to do it. But the courts also had the constitutional right to indict him. And they were also Republicans that indicted him. That wasn't the Democrats in Texas that indicted him. And the last point that I just wanted to make, and I'll make it very quickly, is I'm sure he's raising a lot of money. But the issue is, at the end of the day, House is not going to play with not the Republicans who may be Perry supporters, but the independents. Are they going to come over and want to support him in a general election?
I want to ask everybody whether they think it's going to be good for his bid for the presidency. But first, we want to check in with Joseph Blaettler, criminal justice expert from East Coast Private Investigations, and your thoughts on this indictment.
Well, first of all, I don't think an indictment's ever good. So
no, it generally is not.
It's generally not a good thing. I mean, politically, we live in crazy times. So yeah, are some people going to get behind Rick Perry now because he's indicted and they want to invoke partisan politics? Absolutely. But, we don't know all the facts of the matter yet. I mean, the indictment hasn't been released. If it's strictly he was indicted because he conducted a line item veto, yeah, that's a little fishy to me. I mean, is there more behind the scenes? I really don't know at this point. But I believe it's not a Democrat, it's not a Republican issue.
It's a drunk.
Everywhere.
It's a vendetta of a drunk DA. I mean, that's what it is. It's ridiculous.
Everywhere on both sides.
Well, I was just going to say, and this is your expertise.
Yes.
So in terms of this particular case, I mean, they're saying that he could get something like 99 years in prison if found guilty.
If they're just talking about this line item veto issue, if that's the only thing they have, I mean, this is ridiculous. If there's more to it, release what there is and let's see what it is. But if they're just saying we're indicting this guy because he invoked his authority to veto some budgetary items, it's insane. Even David Axelrod came out and said this is a little fishy.
Yeah, a lot of liberals don't like this because they're like, this is not helping us.
Going back to the Republican issue, the corruption issue, it's across the board. I truly believe government is corrupt from top to bottom. I mean, whether it's the municipal level, the federal level, there's corruption everywhere. It has no
But
party.
Not everyone's corrupt. That's
not
ridiculous.
everyone is corrupt.
That's not right to say.
But I think government is extremely corrupt. I see it every day.
Some that
We're
corrupt
seem
and
to
not
be
Perry.
doing a story on somebody at least every other week here on Fresh Outlook. So I would say that there's quite a few corrupt politicians.
But not everybody.
The issue
guys.
really ultimately comes down to what is corruption and what is corruption in terms of a legal definition versus an ethical or image issue. And I think that's really where a lot of this comes down. In Texas, there's always a lot of tension between the people in Austin, which is a more liberal community, and the people
Very
in the
liberal.
in the State House. And this is not a new thing. But the question is, how do you resolve it and how do you really get to the bottom of it? And I think that the governor is painting a very strong picture that he did nothing wrong. And he's going to have his day in court and he'll be able to defend himself. And we'll see how it all plays out.
I know you don't represent the right side, but do you think that he's coming across stronger in this case? As
I think Rick Perry.
Oh, come on, just say yes. You know you want to.
No, I think Rick Perry has a lot of the mannerisms of George Bush. I mean, I could imagine George Bush having said that same statement on the steps. Not that George Bush was corrupt. I'm not painting that picture at all. But what I am saying is that it's a machismo attitude, and basically
it's a Texas
saying,
attitude.
Yeah, well, I'm from Texas. Okay. All right. So, but the idea is that I think that he as a candidate has to be very careful, because he has to be able to not only win the Republican right that's really going to be a core for him, but he's going to, if he has any prayer of winning any type of election, he's got to be able to appeal to the middle. And I don't know that those messages are going to do that. We'll have to see. It's way away from the
Well, if
election.
they find out that he's innocent and he survived it and he's stronger for it, then sure it'll help him, of course.
and I know,
With
Dee Dee,
independence.
you've mentioned some of your favorites, but do you like Rick Perry as a presidential candidate?
I like him better now, yes. I like his stance on immigration. I think that's a part of it. He was making too much noise, so the National Democrats said, let's figure out how we go after him. That's what it is.
We've got a couple of more minutes. We want to talk about Bob McConnell. Of course, you mentioned Dr. Rosenberg, the former Virginia governor. And boy, what a crazy case this one is. They've got all sorts of things in there from the family, the wife, and all that kind of stuff. Evaluate, if you can, Joseph, both Perry and McDonnell, the cases from a criminal justice perspective.
Apples and oranges.
Okay.
The Virginia case, I mean, you read the indictment, I mean, he's taking Rolex watches, they're going on vacations, trips, leave the Ferrari for me. They're buying stock in companies that he's pushing. The Perry case is, you know, one allegation right now that he did a veto on a line item. The Virginia case is much more substantial. I mean, he benefited himself. He ran up expenses at country clubs for $3,000, $4,000 at a clip. He borrowed the guy's vacation home. The guy's flying him and his wife all over the place. I mean, that is a complete abuse of power.
I agree. I'm not defending the guy. Guilty, terrible.
He's also the former governor.
Exactly.
The issue also that you have to recognize is that there is a very strange interplay between politics and business, okay? And the bottom line is that governors are encouraged to promote business activity in their state, to bring business to their state. The difference is they're not supposed to enrich themselves while they do it. So when we send delegations over to other countries or to bring businesses to New Jersey rather than Colorado, that's an expected activity. But it's not expected that they put money in their pockets, they get loans, they get cars.
What he did is a huge no-no. I mean, you do not cross that line. And his wife, which it seems like she was the problem, but, you know, he went along with it.
Well,
so,
yeah,
Well, it's
very
easy
bad.
to throw the wife under the bus at this point.
Right, I was just going to say.
But, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he knew exactly what was going on.
Oh, I agree. I'm not
He's the one
defending
who's
it.
wearing the Rolex watch.
Yeah.
He's the one who took the
I was
picture in the
gonna say.
Ferrari.
Right.
But
He's
I
the one
sort
who
of
told
think
the
if she wasn't
financial
there,
people
wouldn't
to
have
change
been
the
bad.
forms.
It's still very bad.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, he could throw the wife under the bus all he wants, but at the end of the day, he was the governor. He was in charge. He knew exactly what
Yeah,
was
but
going
she's
on.
crazy. We all knew that. So.
Since Dr. Rosenberg mentioned Chris Christie, of course, New Jersey's governor, where do you think this Bridgegate is going to lie? Is it going to be something that's going to be swept away at this point, or do you think it's going to surface again? Joseph?
Personal opinion,
Uh-huh.
I hope an indictment's coming because I believe it's all true. I believe Chris Christie and his people were involved in this. They closed down the bridge. They threatened Dawn Zimmer. I believe it's all true. And I hope, and you say, ooh.
They threatened Dawn Zimmer.
I was a Christie supporter. I voted for Christie. I actually worked on his campaign. And I got to tell you, he is the biggest disappointment politically that I've ever seen.
I think it's fantastic, and I think it's
I
a
think
big
he is
witch
the
hunt.
biggest disappointment
And
I've ever
where's
seen.
this evidence? Oh, that was there. Everybody was so sure of. I'm just still waiting to see that.
Put your
Where's the
personal
evidence?
opinions aside.
Sure.
Professionally, do you think there's going to be an indictment
Yes,
down the road?
absolutely.
I think the issue is going to be, and that's why in my sort of opening statement in this, I think that the corruption is going to be a theme, because if you have 4 potential presidential candidates that have all been under indictment or all under heavy investigation, that's not going to play well.
But how ironic,
strategy.
though, only from a political point, I covered the case, of course, when Christie brought all the New Jersey politicians, and so many of them were
You
corrupt.
go back, I'm not saying that Democrats are not without fault and that they don't have a history of corruption. That's not my point. My point is we're getting closer and closer to 2016.
Exactly.
And these stories out there are not going to help them.
But there's a reason for that. The Democrats, that's their strategy to keep them busy with lawsuits.
I don't necessarily
of course it is.
accept that.
2 strong presidential candidates. Oh, I'm sorry, we have lawsuits now to keep them busy. It's a strategy on a national level. We'll see if it works.
Any truth to that, Joseph?
If that's a strategy on a national level, it probably is. But the only problem they have is most of what they're saying about Christie is true. So
We'll
it might
see.
be a strategy,
I still-
We'll see.
but it's true.
But
what they're
still,
saying.
No evidence yet.
When I was reporting that
I
case, I
disagree
think it was
there's no evidence yet.
32 politicians, Republicans and Democrats, who were put away because of him. He was a tough attorney general.
He was a tough attorney general, but if you look at his track record, he went after mostly Democrats, and I believe it was all part of his plan to become the governor. I mean, I believe he calculated all this down along the way.
Share those ideas. We'll continue in 2 seconds. Don't go away, everyone. We're going to take a whirl around the world in the lightning round and talk about everything from news from nature. We'll take a look at some works from nature, including a volcano in Iceland that could affect air travel. And we also have some triplets from a mother panda. Don't go away. We'll be right back with much more.